I'm going to England soon. I'm so excited. You have no idea.
Such a lovely girl, and such a waste. Such a waste. She was so polite.
And it just hurts, you know what I mean? Of how young that girl was. She had a whole life ahead of her, and she lost it because of him.
Oh, my temper coming back. This fucking thing on my fucking lip. I'm gonna fucking... It's fucking big on my fucking lip. It's fucking driving me crazy. I'm so fucking ill.
There is a photo on the internet that a lot of people have seen. A young woman, bright smile, dark hair, standing in front of the Houses of Parliament with a skyline behind her and the Thames at her back. She looks like any other tourist, the kind of girl who turns a vacation into an adventure. You would never look at that photo and see anything wrong. But here is what that photo does not show you. It does not show you the years of messages, the late-night calls, the red flags that were explained away, one by one. It does not show you the controlled phone, the deleted conversations, the bruises that were hidden from family back home, and it definitely does not show you what was waiting for her inside that apartment on Tennyson Road. Her name was Ashley Wadsworth. She was 19 years old. She was Canadian, and she had crossed an entire ocean to finally meet the person she believed would be the great love of her life. That was the last decision she ever got to make for herself. Welcome back, everyone. Today we are going in deep on a case that genuinely shook me, not because of the crime alone, but because of the years of warning signs that built up to it, and the way every single one of them got explained away, or forgiven, until it was far too late. We are heading to Chelmsford, Essex, a commuter city northeast of London, but the real story begins on the other side of the world, in a small city nestled in the Okanagan Valley of British Columbia, Canada, where a girl named Ashley was growing up with no idea that an online friendship was slowly being shaped into something dangerous. This is the case of Ashley Wadsworth. Let us get into it. Vernon, British Columbia, is the kind of place that doesn't show up on most people's maps. It sits tucked between mountain ranges in Canada's interior, quiet lakes, pine trees, and the kind of unhurried pace that makes for a solid childhood. Ashley Wadsworth grew up there, and by most accounts, she was exactly the kind of kid you'd hope for. She was social. She was kind. She had a deep faith. She was a practicing member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and that faith shaped how she saw the world. She believed in people. She believed in goodness. She believed, genuinely, that most hearts were worth trusting. She was raised by her mother, Christy Gendron, and was close to her older sister, Haley, and her father, Ken. Her family was her foundation. And even when things got complicated, even when life started pulling her towards someone on the other side of the world, she kept that foundation close. But the story of what happened to Ashley doesn't begin in 2022. It doesn't even begin in 2021. It began in 2012, when Ashley was 12 years old, and the internet was still a place most parents thought they understood. His name was Jack Seppel. He was a few years older than her, based in Chelmsford, a mid-sized city about 30 miles northeast of London. They met online. The exact platform isn't the point, and in the beginning, it was entirely ordinary. Two teenagers from different countries with similar interests, exchanging messages, learning about each other's lives, pen pals for the digital age. Years passed. Ashley moved from middle school to high school. She made friends, went to church, laughed too loud at bad jokes, and all the while, somewhere in the background of her life, there was Jack, consistent, attentive, always there. He told her she was his world. He sent gifts across the ocean. He called her late at night when she couldn't sleep. And then one day, when he was 19, he did something that seemed to say everything without words. He tattooed her name on his arm. To a teenager in love, that kind of gesture can feel like proof, like evidence, like this person is serious, this person is real, this person would never hurt me. It's only later, much later, that you start to understand what that kind of intensity actually signals. By the time Ashley graduated high school, she had spent nearly a decade in this long-distance relationship. She had never stood next to Jack in person, never cooked a meal with him, never sat in the same room during an argument, never seen how he behaved when things didn't go his way, but she loved him, or she loved who she believed him to be, which is a different thing entirely, even if it doesn't feel that way from the inside. Her family had reservations, the kind of quiet, careful concerns that parents hold when they don't want to push their child away. They asked questions, they raised worries. Ashley heard them, and she understood them, and she booked the flight anyway. November 2021. Ashley Wadsworth, 19 years old, stepped off a plane at London Stansted Airport on a 6-month tourist visa, carrying her bags and her certainty. She had been waiting for this moment for years. She was finally going to close the distance. She moved into Jack's 1-bedroom flat on Tennyson Road. It was small. It was theirs. She was happy, or at least, she was hoping to be. The cracks didn't take long to appear. Less than 2 months after she arrived, on December 26th, Boxing Day, Jack Seppel attempted to take his own life by overdosing on medication. Ashley found him. She called the ambulance. She saved him. And in the strange, suffocating logic of an abusive relationship, that moment of crisis became the moment the trap closed all the way around her. Because after that, the hospital put Ashley in charge of his medication. She held the lockbox. She became his caregiver, his keeper, his lifeline, a 19-year-old girl from Canada, thousands of miles from home, now responsible for keeping a deeply troubled man alive. She couldn't leave, or at least, it no longer felt like she could. He needed her, and she cared. And those two things, twisted together, became the chain. January came. The relationship that had seemed like a dream from the outside began to show its true shape on the inside. Jack's moods were unpredictable. His jealousy was consuming. His grip on her life tightened by the week, monitoring her phone, controlling what she posted, managing who she spoke to and when. And then one night, the violence arrived. Jack smashed a beer mug over Ashley's head. His family, alarmed, tried to intervene. They took the couple on a trip to the seaside, a reset, a breather, a hope that distance from the flat might soften things. For a few days, it probably did. But then they came home, and Jack came home too. All of him. Here's something Ashley didn't know. Something, if she had known it, might have changed everything. Jack Seppel had done this before. He had 2 previous girlfriends who had both taken out restraining orders against him. 2 women who had been frightened enough of him to go to a court and put his name on a legal document. One of those cases involved documented stalking. There had been enough of a pattern that police had files on him, that courts had acted, and it didn't stop there. At some point, Jack had assaulted his own mother. None of this was hidden in some impossible vault. It was in police records. It was in court documents. But Ashley, a teenager from Canada who met him online, who had only ever seen what he chose to show her, had no way of knowing any of it. That is one of the most haunting parts of this entire case. Not that the information didn't exist, but that she never had access to it. February 1st, 2022, started early. At around 8 in the morning, neighbors in the building heard screaming coming from the flat, loud enough to act on. One neighbor, a woman named Ellen, went to investigate. Ashley appeared at the door. She was visibly distressed, shaking, desperate for help. Jack had attacked her. And then, in a moment of pure, desperate cruelty, Jack had grabbed the couple's kitten, a small cat named Winston, and thrown it against a wall, killing it. Ellen wanted to call the police. She offered to call the police. She was right there. Ashley begged her not to. She was terrified. Not just of what Jack would do, but of what calling the police might set in motion, the questions, the escalation, the way that sometimes, trying to get out, makes everything worse before it gets better. She had seen enough to know that Jack was capable of anything. She went back inside, but she didn't stop fighting. Sometime that morning, while Jack wasn't watching, Ashley picked up his phone. She started sending messages, SOS messages to her mother, to her sister, to friends she trusted. Short, urgent, terrified communications that said, "Something is wrong. I need help. Please do something." What she didn't know was that Jack had noticed, and Jack, rather than stopping her, started doing something chilling. He began intercepting those messages. He started replying to people pretending to be her, writing back in her name, saying she was fine, everything was okay, no need to worry. But Ashley had friends in England, members of her church, people who knew her well enough to know that something was off. The replies they were getting didn't sound like her. The tone was wrong. The words were wrong. They felt it in their gut. They called the police. When officers arrived at the flat on Tennyson Road that afternoon, They knocked first. Then they forced the door. Jack Seppel was sitting on the bed, calm, unhurried, his phone in his hand, his sister on the screen. He didn't try to run. He didn't say he was sorry. He just sat there. Ashley was on the bed behind him. She had been stabbed more than 90 times. At some point that day, the exact timeline places it before police arrived, Jack had recorded a video of himself. He was covered in Ashley's blood. He looked into the camera and confessed to what he had done. Then he picked up an Xbox controller and started playing video games. There was blood on the controller when police found it, 90 stab wounds, a filmed confession, an Xbox controller. These 3 details tell you everything you need to know about Jack Seppel, not just what he was capable of, but how little it affected him afterward. The case moved quickly through the British justice system. Jack Seppel was charged with murder. He pleaded guilty at Chelmsford Crown Court, a decision widely understood as an attempt to avoid the additional exposure that a full trial would bring. There would be no courtroom drama, no drawn-out testimony, no agonizing cross-examination, just a guilty plea and a sentencing hearing. At that hearing, Ashley's family spoke. Her mother, Christy, described the hollow space that her daughter's absence had carved into their lives. Her sister, Haley, talked about who Ashley was not the victim, but the person. The girl who laughed too loud and believed in people and flew across an ocean because she thought love was worth it. The judge sentenced Jack Seppel to life in prison, the minimum term before he can even be considered for parole. 23.5 years. Ashley Wadsworth was 19 years old. She had been a child when she first encountered Jack Seppel. She was barely out of high school when she decided to meet him. She made every decision she made from a place of genuine love, or at least, from a place where love was what she was looking for. And that is what makes this case so hard to sit with, because the failure here wasn't hers. She wasn't naive in the way that word gets used to dismiss victims the way it implies they should have seen it coming, should have been smarter, should have somehow known. She was a 19-year-old who had spent years trusting someone, who had spent those same years hiding who he really was. The failure was systemic. It was the gap between what was known about Jack Seppel, the restraining orders, the assault, the documented pattern, and what Ashley could ever have found out on her own. It was the way that online relationships can build entire architectures of trust on a foundation of performance. You only see what someone chooses to show you. The camera only points one direction. The profile only says what they want it to say. It was the way that violence in a relationship escalates slowly enough that leaving starts to feel impossible before the danger is fully visible. Ashley's church friends in England made a call, a simple, instinct-driven call, because the messages coming back to them didn't feel right. That call was too late to save her life, but it was not too late to make sure her story was told. Not too late to make sure Jack Seppel stood in a courtroom and heard what he had taken from the world. Her name was Ashley Wadsworth. She came from Vernon, British Columbia. She believed in people. She flew across an ocean for love. The next time someone tells you that online relationships aren't real, tell them about Ashley. They are real. The feelings are real. The danger is real. And sometimes, so is the monster on the other side of the screen. Rest in peace, Ashley Wadsworth. 2002-2022.